The Mesa Chamber of Commerce Inside Business Podcast brings you a unique view of Mesa through its vibrant business community and the subjects that are important. The podcast is produced in the Mesa Chamber of Commerce Media Studio, sponsored by the University of Phoenix. Our podcast is hosted by Mesa Chamber of Commerce CEO Sally Harrison. Please enjoy this episode of the Mesa Chamber Inside Business Podcast.
We are back with our friend Pam Ostrowski. Pam was here a few days ago, and we talked about a lot of things, including Dementia-Friendly City and Dementia-Friendly Mesa and our Aging and Healthcare Committee and Pam's book, It's Not Simple. It's not that simple, helping families navigate the Alzheimer's journey. But I asked Pam to come back because Pam's got stories about, well, lots of folks and families who have gone through navigating with their dementia or Alzheimer's family members and friends, and I asked Pam to come back and just share a story because some of these stories are very sad.
Yes, they can be heartbreaking, but I think the reason why, and thank you for having me back.
Of course.
I appreciate it because the scenario that happens most frequently, I wanted to enlighten family members as to how to do that, how to navigate that journey.
Well, and maybe prevent some of the bad stuff, right?
Exactly. So what typically happens, there's the ideal situation, which is you notice your loved one is having issues, and the question is really, did they have dementia? Do they have Alzheimer's? Are they diagnosed? And then do they have any sort of recourse of what do we do with this? Because the doctor will basically turn around and say, yep, you've got dementia, we'll see you in 6 months. And they may say, here's the Alzheimer's Association information. They may even say, here's Pam's book, read it. However, a family member is going to sit there and say, well, I can't do this. I can't deal with it. So we're just going to monitor, right? So what happens over time is that monitoring becomes catastrophic. And a fall happens because the house that the loved one is living in is not dementia friendly. So there's rugs and all sorts of things. There's cats. You know, cats tend to trip people up because they wind around your feet. So a fall happens. And rather than them being in a care community where that would be alerted, they could be there for a long time because they don't have a way to alert. And so here they are in the hospital. The hospital doesn't know that they have dementia. So you as a family member have to be on the entire time letting every care person know this my parents have, or my father or my mother has dementia, and they're not going to be able to follow instructions. So I am here as their healthcare power of attorney. If you don't have that paperwork ready, you're in trouble. Because as soon as you get a diagnosis, you need to get, if you haven't already put your healthcare power of attorney, your durable power of attorney, any trust or will information hasn't been put together yet, you need to do that immediately, because as soon as they can't sign their name or they don't understand the documents, then they are considered incompetent, and now the state takes over. So you have an estate plan. It's run by the state until you claim it.
Right.
So, but the thing is, so you have this individual, they've fallen. If they've hurt themselves, so let's say they fracture their hip, do you get them surgery?
Yeah.
So then if you decide to do a hip replacement, for instance, and, how do you get through rehab?
Yeah.
They can't follow instructions.
Right.
So then what do you do? So the family is getting overwhelmed by dad fell, this doctor wants to do surgery, what do we do afterwards? Who do we go to? And so there's this whole infrastructure that I want to reassure everyone that there is. But the number one tip is ask 100 questions. I've decided 50 was not enough. So we're going to ask 100 questions. Before you do anything, when you're in a hospital situation, is to say, this person has dementia. What are the implications for recovery? What are the next steps when they leave the hospital? What will the discharge papers say? Because ultimately those can be very vague. Who do the discharge papers go to? Do I get copies of all of the discharge papers? The answer to that one is no, unless you ask for them. So you somehow magic happens. So you have the surgery, say, And all of a sudden, you're told, okay, transportation's coming and we're going to rehab. What? So there's this sense of, okay, I wasn't involved in that conversation. So then you get to the discharge, the rehab center, and they say, we don't have the hospital's paperwork. We don't have the pain medication. So you need to have all of this pain, whatever medications that your loved one has. Pain medications as a result of a fall, whatever, and whether that involves surgery or not. Whatever medical records, recommendations, any sort of information that they have, you need copies of, and don't hand them off to anybody. Make copies first, and then hand them off to people, and then call ahead. So just because the hospital said they called rehab doesn't mean that rehab processed that information or that the hospital provided all of that. So you say, all right, who did you talk to at rehab? And give me the phone number, and then you call and say, my parent is coming in. This is what's happened. What else? What all do you need? Do you have everything that you need so that this transition is very smooth? And the worst time to move someone with dementia is anytime after 3 o'clock. I mean, if you can get it done in the morning or by 2 o'clock, that's perfect.
Right.
But don't bother after that because they're going to start to sundown because they're restless, because they're not sleeping well. So it's just going to make it worse. They're going to try to get out of bed. It's better that they're in the hospital where there's more nursing staff and staff in general to monitor that, as opposed to you going to rehab and introducing yourself, hey, we're new and we're sundowning right now and he wants to get out of bed even though he fell. So it just gets ugly really quickly if you're not prepared. So and that's part of what I do is I work with the family every step of the way to make sure that, have you asked this question? Who have you talked to here? And it's ridiculous. And then, it's like, well, should we call hospice? Well, what's your choice? Do you want to do rehab and improve them? Because hospice isn't allowed in rehab.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Rehab
That's
is about restoring health. Hospice is about comfort care while passing, right? So it makes sense, right? They're counterintuitive. So the question then becomes, well, when do you make that decision? And then you would move your loved one to a care community, a memory care community most likely. And then hospice can come in, and that's covered by Medicare. That's the good news. And so then you get a case manager, a nurse, a doctor, a chaplain. So you get all these people, but they all come in at different times. And most family members don't ask them questions.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many questions. It's like, all right, so you're going to move my person from rehab to a care community. How's that going to work? So you do the same process that you did from the hospital to rehab. Anytime you make a transition, you ask a million, okay, so I said 100 questions instead of a million, to ensure that they know you're coming, they know who you are, they know who your loved one is, they know exactly what's happening, and you have carte blanche on what kind of questions you want to ask, because this is your loved one.
Sure.
And they're the ones supporting them. So that's part of your care team. So that's really what the journey can look like if you wait until a fall happens and you're not prepared for it.
This is a full-time job for people.
Oh, absolutely. And then you get home and you find whatever, you forage for food, and then you're sitting there and you can't sleep.
Right.
Because all you're thinking about is, are they okay?
Right.
Are they sleeping? Did they get their morphine? Did they get their medications? Is somebody watching over them? Is somebody making sure that they don't fall out of the bed? I mean, it's just one thought after another. So that sense of anxiety is really what affects stress, which affects diabetes, heart, cholesterol, heart attacks, heart stroke, all of those things are affected by this level of stress.
Well, and I would think in a sense, your job, right? Because you're spending so much time, like not every job is that flexible that you can take time and just stop what you're doing to run over and take care of something that's maybe just happened.
Yes, and that's where siblings are supposed to come into play.
Well, hopefully you have siblings, right?
Well, so that's why I said supposed to, too. Even if you do, that doesn't mean they signed up for it.
Right.
So you may be
or that they're local.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's lots of factors there that say, well, why am I the one? And I'm the one who's... So then you have to have a conversation with your boss. Hey, bad things happened. I need to take some time off.
Right. So you do have a company called Alzheimer's Family Consulting, and I assume that you've got lots of checklists and things that you share with people because you talked about like having like legal things in place.
Yes.
So that's a big part of it, which I'm guessing a lot of people don't do that.
Only 30% of people.
You wait for things to happen and then go, oh, shoot, we better get this done.
Right.
But it's almost after the fact probably most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your website?
My website is alzheimersfamilyconsulting.com, and you can reach me at pam@itsnotthatsimple.com. I figured my email should be about the book.
Yes.
But the consulting side of the business is alzheimersfamilyconsulting.com.
Okay, well, great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update and for that information because we weren't able to cover that when we met a few days ago. But I appreciate it, and we will have you back for more.
Well, thank you.
I know that this is ever evolving, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll have progress with the dementia-friendly Mesa, too.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you for the stats
Thank
and the
you.
information. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Sally. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
This has been a Mesa Chamber of Commerce Inside Business podcast. You can find all podcast episodes at iTunes, Spotify, or your own favorite podcast website. You can also find them online at mesachamber.org. Content of this podcast is copyright the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, unless otherwise noted.